Shiny. So the Cadillac almost burnt down again. Makes like the third time. First time of me having it. But let me tell you a little tale. So the other morning I was getting in the car, leaving work. Yes, my floorboards are super dirty and my seats are ripped. It's a daily driver. And I was kind of in a hurry to leave. And as you can see by a third switch, I kind of nailed it with my boot pretty hard. And I thought to myself, yep, I just need another extension. So I didn't think much of it. I also noticed a little piece of plastic down there. So I wonder what that's from. Didn't pay it no attention. So I kept cruising the car, like I normally do. Drive to work, drive home, cruise around, no problems at all. So yesterday I went to a buddy of mine's house and we went and cut up some firewood and left the car at his house all day. Didn't pull the ground. Kind of gotten comfortable. I haven't been pulling the ground like I should. You should. We all should. And got back to the car, went to leave, fired it up, went to drive out of his driveway, hit the switch, didn't work. That was weird. Didn't remember undoing the ground. So I hopped out. I was like, maybe I did. I just forgot about it. Opened the trunk. Ground still hooked up. So, that's weird. So unhooked the ground, tapped it, make sure there wasn't no sparks, any short or anything. And just the other day, when I hooked the two more batteries up, I decided to put a fuse in on the switch wire. Something I didn't do before, which I definitely recommend doing. I don't know why I didn't do it before. I was probably just in a hurry when building the car. And it's been good ever since. But definitely something you should do. And this time it saved my butt big time. Looked at the fuse. Well, first I opened the trunk and then I smelled it. It smelled a horrible smell. It's like if you took 10 bags of Doritos and lit them on fire. That's the best way I could describe it. It's a terrible smell. But so I kind of already knew something wasn't right. The car was jacked up. Which I usually don't lay it down all the way because I have had switches stick in the down position numerous occasions, and that'll melt a dump pretty quick, and that could definitely cause a fire. So I've always started putting fuses in my switch wire to kind of avoid that from happening, and I'm glad I did this time because that's what happened. On further inspection of that switch, I creamed that thing, and I thought I just broke the extension, but I destroyed the whole switch. A little piece of plastic that goes to the side of the switch, so I nailed it pretty good apparently. But luckily a fuse popped and didn't create a fire. So the trunk display being wood, that could be fuel for the fire. That'd be just really, really bad. So I'm gonna throw a new switch in here. I got new extensions on the way. I'll make a video about that if I haven't already. Put a new switch in, hook it all back up. Everything worked yesterday. I just unhooked it on the way home just to be safe. I didn't want no fire going down the road. That would suck too. So I'm gonna pop it all back together and get it back on the road. I love when I plan ahead for the future. I left just enough wire on there to be able to pull it out individually. Usually I make the wires really short, so you can't see them. But this one I left it just a little bit longer and I can fix it in just a few minutes. Good thinking, Cadillac Dan. So after further inspection, found out that wire is a little bit crispy. The insulation is pulled off by my hand. So that could have really been bad. Probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit smaller fuse in there. I had a 35 amp fuse, but I think I might kick it down just a hair. But now I gotta inspect my switch wire, make sure it's all good. This is a little jumper wire that goes over to one of the other switches. The wire that leaves the other switch looks good, but I'm going to trace it back just to make sure. And there's the side of the switch. And inside there you can see that back contact is stuck. And that's what it was that caused the problem. And once again, this is why you hoard stuff. That was from a switch box I did a while back. Look at that, just happened to have a jumper wire already built, ready to throw it in. Got my new switch in there. And after further inspection, I was thinking it was the dump wire, but it is not. Because that bottom wire Hey! Get off of there! That's why I can't have nice things. Jesus. Anyways, yeah, the bottom is switch up. You know, like I said in my other video, that's how the switches work, just like that. So that could have been really bad. Could have had my pump sitting there spinning while I wasn't there, melting down. Ugh, that could have been bad. So don't do like me. Don't get comfortable with a car and, you know, always unhook your ground. I used to be really, really paranoid when I first built this car because of the previous experiences and the history of it. And, you know, when my wife would drive it, I always tell her, undo the ground, undo the ground, undo the ground. And I had a switch that stuck. And I noticed it before we had any problem. I drove it home one day, and I looked down and I noticed the switch was still stuck in the down position when I got to the house. And so it kind of alerted me of that, you know, always be cautious and undo the ground. And I've always undone the ground to about probably 4 or 5 months ago. Then I got kind of comfortable with the car. I was daily driving it, so I was kind of knowing the ins and outs of the car. I've never had a problem out of it. It's always been really, really reliable. And got a little bit too comfortable apparently. So keep that in mind. Always unhook your ground. I'm actually going to put a ground under the seat. Probably going to do a forklift ground. That way I can just pull it straight up. I'm lazy. Don't want to go in the trunk every day. So now I got it all figured out and fixed. I'm going to get back to driving this thing. So the plot thickens even more. Got everything all put back together, put a new fuse in it, lifted, dropped the car, dropped fine, lifted the front, lifted fine, dropped the back, dropped fine, lifted it. It lifted fine, but then it popped the fuse, and I heard the fuse pop. And I thought that's kind of odd, so tore all the beauty boards out, and I noticed this. That's oil. But it's not oil from my pump. And it's also back there. It had been splattered. I thought that was kind of odd. I'm going to tear this one apart just to look at it again. But there's a winding of metal, or winding of wire. It's a coil. And it's held together by some kind of like varnish or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Like I said, I'm going to tear that apart and find out. But what I did to kind of diagnose to see this was a problem. I mean, that right there is obviously a problem. But just to make sure I'm going down the right path, got my voltmeter, put it on continuity. Thought maybe this was grounded out. Everything looked good up front, but you never know. So while it was attached, I took my leads from here to here, and it was getting continuity. So something was grounding out somewhere. So I took that off, did the same thing. Checked this with my meter from here to here. It was not grounding out. That told me that this isn't a problem. And with this unhooked, I did the same thing. Put my meter from here to here. They were grounding out, both of them. So that could have been a really, really bad problem. Luckily that fuse popped instead of activating the pump and just melting this down. So I got me 2 brand new AccuMaxes. I actually have a bunch of AccuMaxes that I'm putting in my Fleetwood, but they're going to go in here for now. And we'll swap them out, and hopefully that'll fix the problem. Should. So I've got the solenoids out of the car. I don't know if you can see it there, but they're both leaking this kind of oil, and it's sticky and it stinks very, very bad. So I'm about to take these apart and knock them rivets off, open them on up, show you guys what the inside of a solenoid looks like, and just see if my thought is correct. So we got our rivets pulled out. It's just a little piece of rubber there. Keep that from shorting out, because this moves back and forth. And as you can see, it is stuck. So let me fight with this to get it apart, and we can go in further. How the pump wasn't spinning totally has me. But I'm glad it wasn't, because that's pretty well stuck. So give me a second, I'm going to tear it apart. We'll go in further. So I was correct. That does just pull out. I had to loosen that up. This is your signal wire. That's the easiest way to put it. And what it does is it sends your power here, and it activates that coil. It makes it suck in. And then this washer pushes on those two connectors there, and that's what sends it to your battery. Sends voltage to your battery. But as you can see, that's pretty melted. Bunch of melted plastic. That's why it was so hard to get out of there. And there's a bunch of oil inside of there. I'm going to try and get that out. I am not sure it's going to be a success because, like I said, it's kind of all melted. But we shall see. Not looking too good. So after it not coming apart, I did what anybody would do. I broke it. Well, it is pretty nasty. I don't think we're going to be able to really see in there. But as you can see, this little wire right here, what that is a big winding through the whole piece there. And like I said, there's some kind of varnish or something that they use to keep it all insulated and keep it all together. And I'm pretty sure that's what all this nasty stuff is, because it's kind of sticky. And I'm pretty sure it's all that varnish. I'll grab a motor, an armature for a motor, and you can totally see what I'm talking about. Once again, another good reason never to throw stuff out. You might be able to see there. It's kind of like a waxy coating. There, you can definitely see it. A waxy coating all around there and in there. I think that's pretty much the same thing as in here. And I think it just melted. So, now you know what the inside of a solenoid looks like. And kind of how it works. Hopefully. But I'm going to get washed up because this stuff reeks. And I'm going to put 2 new solenoids in the car and hopefully everything will go good. So if you watched my other video about building battery cables, you may have already noticed when I had these cables on, I had some big washers on them. And I'm not opposed to it. It holds really good. But if you'll notice, this is an AccuMax. This is just a basic solenoid from the parts store. There's a little bit of difference there. And that little bit will make or break putting the washers on there. And that nut having a good secure fasten. So I'm going to go ahead and whip me up a set of battery cables. Got me a little bit of cable left over. Actually, I need to go through all my inventory because I have a lot more stuff than what I think I do. It's just all scattered all over. But I'm going to whip me up some cables. You can check out my link in the description for the other video of building battery cables if you want to. I'll put it down there for you. But I'm going to get these built and start putting it all back together. Now, as you can see, I got a little bit of corrosion there, which actually just wipes right off. But I've got raw metal under my solenoids, which is, I do this on all my setups. Usually I paint them, but this one's all under beauty boards, so I don't really want to waste the time even painting it. But I'm going to scuff this up, get it nice and good and clean. And I also have some dielectric grease. Kind of helps make a better connection, keep corrosion down. Just a little safe thing to do. One thing I like to do on my solenoid mounts, I run a bolt from the bottom and I weld it. A lot of people, they'll run self-tapping screws, they'll put a nut and a bolt through it. Nut and a bolt's good. Self-tapping screws, that's a terrible idea. It doesn't tighten as good as you want it to, and most of the time it ends up stripping out. It's a nightmare to change out. It's a bad idea. So that's why I do it this way. It's a lot simpler. Just get a 7/16 socket down there, and you can swap them out with one hand. So it just makes things a lot easier. Well, that sure did escalate quickly. I got everything back together, hit the switch, solenoids clicked, nothing happened. Which is odd because I just lifted the car up earlier before I took everything apart. But I switched my wire over from my back pump to my front pump on the same set of solenoids, and it worked just fine. Noticed an abnormally large amount of dust coming out of the end cap and on my beauty board, which wasn't on my other pump, and I used my front pump a lot more than my back pump. So I decided to take the motor apart, and that's what I found. The brushes are gone, non-existent. Apparently there was a little bit of power going to the pump, and it just sat here and ate up the bushings, I guess. I don't know if the pump was spinning. The car wasn't locked up when I came back, so God only knows. But I do know I need a new motor, so I'm gonna grab one that I have and throw it on there. And just like that, ready to put the new one back in. Good thing about having two lowriders, you got plenty of parts laying around. Alright, motor's back in, everything's wired up. Let's try this again, like the 30th time. No sparks, that's a good sign. Yay! That was an ordeal. So that was fun, wasn't it? Man. But could have been way worse. Like way worse. So I ended up replacing a switch, two solenoids, rebuilding the battery cables, replacing the solenoid cable, and putting the motor in. But thinking back on it, that motor's probably been going out for a while. It's been making a little bit different noise than it usually has. I thought maybe like a pump head was going out, but it would only do it sporadically. So didn't really pay much attention to it. It still worked, so I kept on rocking with it. No complaints on the motor. That originally came out of the tan Cadillac when I first built it for my buddy. That was probably about 10 years ago. However old the Lincoln is, I built those two cars within months of each other. So no complaints. I got my money's worth out of that thing. But it's all back together. It would happen on a day before I have to go back to work. I just had a 4-day weekend, and yesterday I decided to mess up, so I spent my whole day working on it. So now it's all good. I'm going to leave all the beauty boards out of it for a little while. Just keep an eye on everything, make sure everything's all good. And I'll throw it all back together and keep on riding it. So, with that being said, I'm going to end it here. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you on the next one.
What seems to be the problem?
Good shot. Got away free. It lives to die another day.